Thanks for joining us. You are here for LandTech's webinar, Digital Twins, a Geospatial Approach to Asset Management. There will be a short time for Q&A, but if you have any questions, we'd love to hear from you. Please enter your questions into the chat box. Also, we will send you a copy of the recording, so happy to do that after the presentation. So joining us today for our lead moderator is Christopher Lorrain. He is the founder and president of LandTech Consultants. LandTech is an innovative 3D technology-based civil engineering and surveying company. They serve the AEC industry since 1990. So they have a continued focus on innovation and technology. And, Chris really has led LandTech to be a recognized leader in the use of laser scanning, 3D modeling, and drones in the industry. So he is a Bachelor of Science in Civil Engineering and is a registered professional engineer. So during the past 35 years, he has been involved pretty much in every project you can name and countless residential, commercial, and infrastructure projects around the country. Chris, welcome. Thanks for joining us.
Oh, thanks for having us, Alex. Well, thank you, everybody, for joining us. We have a great presentation that we want to show you today. It's as most of you have heard, digital twins as the new and upcoming technology. But what can you do with a digital twin? And we intend on showing you through a series of webinars the various things that we're now utilizing to integrate digital twins into daily work and daily life. Today is going to be focused on asset management, integration of asset management into digital twins. So just a quick, brief background on LandTech. LandTech was formed in 1990 as a civil engineering and land surveying firm. In 2011, during the Great Recession, which I'm sure most of us still remember, we decided to diversify a little bit and get into 3D technologies and utilize 3D laser scanning in 3D building information modeling. We saw a need for building information modeling in the civil industry and in the infrastructure industry. And we started to focus on that in 2014 as to how 3D technologies could assist in reconstructing our infrastructure. In 2015, we added UAV mapping for not just mapping of property, but also for utilization of 3D infrastructure as well and creating 3D models. In 2017, we kicked off a GIS pilot project, several GIS pilot projects. We noticed that several of our infrastructure clientele, in particular in the water and wastewater industry, were starting to ask, how can we use digital twins and building information modeling to further integrate into the workflows associated with the water and wastewater industry? And how could we utilize that for asset management, facility management, operations, training, and all the associated uses that we could potentially implement into those digital twins? We had great success in that 2017 timeframe with pilot projects that we started developing. And we integrated that starting in 2020. We started integrating our workflows with our 3D modeling integration and making those available to several of our clients. We were recognized in 2020 by Esri as being a leader in this industry, and we were recognized as one of two of the leading engineering firms in the country that were integrating digital twin technologies into asset and facility management. In 2021, we were asked to be a keynote presenter at the Esri Infrastructure Management GIS Conference. At that point, Jaffe, who is here with me today as well from LandTech, started to implement these technologies in various industries and in various ways. And today we're slated to show you how we integrate that primarily with asset management. So Jaffe, who is our GIS coordinator, who is responsible for most of what you're going to see today. I'm going to kick it off to him, and I'm going to let Zach bring you through and show us what we have accomplished to date.
Awesome. Thanks, Chris, and thanks again, everyone, for joining. So I'm going to walk you through what the entire process looks like, going from the data collection to the modeling to the GIS integration and taking it further in integrating with various asset management platforms. Now, a lot of the examples I'm going to show today are focused on the water and wastewater utility. We're not focused on, we're examples in the water and wastewater utility sector. But I want you to keep in mind that this solution and workflow does apply to the power industry, the transportation industry, and general infrastructure project in those industries. So beginning with the data collection, we use a terrestrial LiDAR scanner inside these facilities to capture the existing conditions. We set that scanner up to capture what is actually there. We then process that information to create the point clouds. So the two pictures on the left are images of point clouds, where these billions and billions of points have accuracy down to 3 or 4 millimeters on your state plane or coordinate system. So the way these scanners works is it picks up anything the eye can see. So if your eye can see it, the scanner will pick it up. It's really the truest form of existing condition documentation you can have, because the scanner is not going to lie. It's not going to mismeasure or completely miss a feature. It's really true. And it's also extremely detailed down to the nuts and bolts of the features. So we take that point cloud and we bring it into a modeling software, like the pictures on the right are example of that modeling software using Revit, where we create the actual physical features, that building information model, the BIM. And so, kind of as Chris mentioned, we had been doing this, since about 2011 for various industries, when our clients started coming back to us and saying, these models are great, these point clouds are great, these BIM models are great, but how can we integrate these models with GIS for the purpose of asset management, to improve field operations, for training purposes, and more? And as Chris mentioned, today we're just going to be focusing on that asset management integration aspect. So jumping right into it, we take that BIM model and bring it into the Esri ArcGIS Pro environment, which is the picture, the main picture kind of on the right of your screen. So we bring that BIM model, we bring it into the ArcGIS Pro environment and convert it into a geodatabase. So what I like to say is, here we're looking at, on the picture on the right, we're looking at a 3D GIS model. No longer a BIM model, but a 3D GIS model. And for this particular project, we were working with a client who was utilizing an Oracle asset management platform. So we exported all of the assets they had for this facility just into a tabular format, as you can see the table in the top left. While we were on site performing the scanning and the LiDAR survey, we identified the location of each one of those line item assets, where they were in the real world. We brought that information into the 3D GIS model. So I have a couple of videos I'll show you in a moment, but when we click on this model and click on a particular asset, we can visualize where that model is in its actual location, as well as we're able to view the attribute information that came from the Oracle Asset Management platform. So we're really showing the where is the asset, and we're giving the information to what is that asset. By bringing these models into the geodatabase, we're converting it into GIS features, which is giving us a lot of those viewing and editing capabilities, as well as georeferencing the model in its real world location. So that's really creating the full digital twin. And because we're utilizing the Esri platform, we can utilize other Esri platform solutions as well. So the first one being ArcGIS Online. It's a really efficient way to deploy these models and these assets to your organization enterprise-wide. So if a particular user might not be a typical GIS user or doesn't have ArcGIS on their desktop or laptops, you can still give that person access to this information through an online browser. These are all 3 different projects. As examples, the top left was a project for DeKalb. It's just showing me slicing through a building, which again, I have a video on later. We are a Massachusetts-based firm, so the picture on the bottom left is a heavy intersection in the Boston area, and the stereotypical Dunkin' Donuts on every corner, which is a true stereotype. And then the picture on the right is that model where the 2017 model we actually first kicked off, where that particular project wanted to see how detailed these models can get. So these are all being shared through ArcGIS Online, where you have the full viewing capabilities for the wheres and the whats of these assets. And again, utilizing other Esri solutions, you can create dashboards for reporting services, which is using these using gauges and charts being driven by the attributes that are coming from your asset management platform. So the first example of that dashboard on the top left is of a valve condition assessment, where those gauges and charts are being driven by the attributes in that particular model. Now, the picture on the bottom right is a pretty cool and unique one where this model was actually integrated with SCADA data in real time. So we had a SCADA system integrated with an enterprise geodatabase, published that enterprise geodatabase into our ArcGIS Online or portal account, where then we created that dashboard for viewing and reporting services. So right now we're looking at the tank levels and the gauges, which are showing those tank levels coming from the geodatabase, coming from the SCADA in real time. This is just one example of how we can integrate with real-time sensors or IoT, but it is a really efficient way of communicating that information in real time to a variety of different stakeholders. So everything I've shown you up until this point was utilizing the Esri ArcGIS Pro or ArcGIS Online or portal platform as your asset management solution, which absolutely is a really efficient way to do so. It's an efficient way to view the models, work with the attribute information behind the models, integrate with your asset management platforms. But what we started seeing was a lot of our users have their day-to-day workflows primarily in their asset management platforms, in their Maximos, in their Infor, in their CityWorks. That's what the GIS techs, the asset managers, the field technicians are all using to complete their work order or their task orders in their day-to-day operations. So we took it a step further to actually fully integrate the models within those platforms. So these are two examples, pictures of two examples. The one on the left is with Infor EAM, and the picture on the right is within IBM Maximo, where we brought the model and all that information into that platform. So it's like a one-stop shop solution. So I mentioned earlier, I have a couple videos to show you what these workflows actually look like live. And I'm going to use 3 projects as these examples. The first video I'm going to show you was for Riverside, California, where I kind of mentioned we integrated with an Oracle asset management platform where they had a very built-out database of their indoor assets, but needed to know where those assets were. They had a hard time locating these assets in the field, wasting a lot of time and effort to send a field tech to actually locate that asset and complete that task. The second video I'm going to show you was for DeKalb, Illinois, where they would go through a lot of parts replacements and kind of had that same issue. They needed to readily identify what that asset was and where that asset is. For that one, we also did a full integration with Maximo and ArcGIS Online.
With apologies, I think we might have had a little internet snafu.
Okay.
While we wait for Zach, though, we had a question. We'd love to hear from you all, from the audience. If you look in your chat window, you should see the poll. Are you currently utilizing any digital twin technologies? LiDAR, BIM, 3D GIS. Would love to hear from you. If you want to enter in the chat window, which ones you are utilizing. Or which ones you're thinking about, would like to be utilizing more. We'd just love to hear where you're at. All right, looks like most people are a yes.
Amy, if you'd like to there we go. Zach, looks
I'm
like
sorry.
Zach.
Did you guys lose me there?
We
We
did.
lost you,
Welcome
Zach.
back.
All right, I'm back. Sorry.
We
about
lost you at the first video.
All right. Sorry about that. I'm back at it. So I'm going to play that first video I mentioned for the Riverside, California project. So
Just to answer a question here, Zach, WTP means water treatment plant. WWTP means wastewater treatment plant.
yes. So
Thanks, Chris.
this first video here was for that Riverside water treatment plant, where right now we were looking at the colorized 3D point cloud. So this is those billions and billions of points that's creating the existing condition documentation, which is the foundation for the project moving forward. So we looked at the point cloud. Now we're in the ArcGIS Pro environment where I'm looking at that 3D GIS model. So we had that point cloud. We modeled it in Revit to create the building information model, the BIM. And now we're in the GIS environment looking at that GIS model. So here I'm performing a standard GIS attribute query. So because these are GIS models and GIS features, we have a lot of that GIS functionality you might be used to. So I'm performing a query where the last maintained date is before January 1st, 21. I can run that query to find all of those assets in that facility that have not been maintained yet this year. And I'm going to get all of those records selected. Here it's only one, but that could be thousands if that was the situation. So I can quickly zoom to that asset and say, okay, this is where that asset is located. I can click on it to view all the associated attributes, including a picture. That's going to help the field technician going out to the site saying, okay, it's this, this is where it is. Associated operation manuals, so they can say, okay, these are the tools or pieces of equipment I'm going to need to replace it. So that was just kind of an example showing the basic attribute query and accessing outside data source information.
I think it's important too, Zach, that we just want to point out that that was entirely within the ArcGIS Pro environment.
Yes. So hold on one second here. I want to replay this video from the start. And this video here, kind of similar workflow. We went from the point cloud to the GIS model, all within the GIS environment. I'm performing another attribute query where I'm looking for a pump that needs to be maintained. This was the decal project. I click on that pump. I see that last maintained date. And here I included the maximal asset ID number. I click on this link, and it takes me directly now to the Maximal interface. So I'm no longer in GIS. I'm now in Maximal, where I can utilize the full functionality of Maximal. It took me directly to that record so I can perform my work order, my task order my replacement parts, anything there. We also included that 3D GIS tab I just clicked on, so I can also view 3D GIS model directly from Maximal. So I don't have to open up my ArcGIS tab or viewer or my Pro or ArcGIS Online. I can view it all right then and there within Maximal. And that's pulling the Maximal model was pulling from ArcGIS Online. So here's an example of that model in ArcGIS Online. So this is how you would distribute it enterprise-wide. As you can see, it renders extremely cleanly. It's a very slick-looking model. It gives you a lot of other cool tools and functionalities as well. For example, here's a slice tool that gives you a unique look into the facility, almost like a bird's eye view indoors, which is pretty cool. And the picture of the slice tool kind of horizontally, like I showed in one of my pictures previously, that allows me to really see how the infrastructure interacts between different floors. You also have a cool tool here that allows you to measure. So let's say I was going to fix or replace that pump. Is it going to fit through the door? You can find out all that information right then and there.
I just want to add too, Zach, that you had indicated that that model is showing, that video is showing the model within ArcGIS Online.
Yes.
The same functionality occurs if you're using an ArcGIS Enterprise solution. So therefore, you do not have to go online. You can keep this entirely within your own organization and entirely within your own network. And the same functionality is obtainable.
Yep, exactly. So this final video I'll show you here is an example within Infor EAM. So for this project, they didn't have any of their indoor or vertical assets inside EAM. So when we uploaded the model, all of those assets all those asset records were created within Infor. So here, just showing kind of the basic functionality within Infor. I query for a pipe. I can then bring up the model, again, pulling from ArcGIS Online or through ArcGIS Portal through an enterprise account. Again, if you have, as Chris mentioned, security specifications where you don't want to share that online or through the cloud, you can do it all locally on your local servers. Again, pulling from that portal, I have all the 3D viewing capabilities. I can set a home. I can layer through and filter through different assets, kind of toggling them on and off to either view a specific area of interest or view the models. So I'm going to jump back into my presentation here. And getting back to the kind of mentioning the utility sector, everything I'd shown was really focusing on the indoor vertical assets, while this does apply to your subsurface utilities as well. Now, the picture at the top left is just a simple example of an existing conditions plan in 2D, where we then actually took that 2D drawing and converted it into a 3D network. We then bring that 3D network into the ArcGIS Pro environment, again, where we bring that into the Geo database, converting it to GIS features, and then can publish that information enterprise-wide. So that picture on the top right, you can see the subsurface utilities as well as the above-ground features. Really, this is like, you know, the full digital twin, above and below ground features where you have realistic buildings, the lights, and can see those subsurface utilities. So I kind of jumped through a lot here. So I want to take a step back and look at the general overview in architecture of this solution now that you've seen what it looks like live. So the first step is, you can see in the bottom left, is you have your BIM model that's created from those LiDAR scans. That BIM model into the Geo database, it's a one-way street. Edits and updates can be made, which is another topic. I don't know if we'll have time for today, but we bring that BIM model into the Geo database where we create it into GIS multi-patch features. From there, we can add and edit the attribute information coming from an EAM system, an asset management platform. And here we have kind of different routes we can go. We can view these models directly through the ArcGIS platform, and we can also view it through the EAM, the enterprise asset management platforms like the Maximos or Infor or others. And we have a database connection between them through scene viewers and REST APIs, where information from your ArcGIS can be sent to your asset management platform and viewed there. Or alternatively, you have information from your asset management platform that can be sent back to your Geo database and viewed there. So you do have that bi-directional communication, really kind of giving everyone access to all the necessary information they're going to need, whether it's the GIS team, the asset management team, or the boardroom. So
a nice feature of that is that any additions to any of your assets or any changes to any of your assets are automatically updated in both platforms.
Exactly. So the benefits when implementing this kind of workflow, the main one is that you're tying your physical asset location to the asset information and putting that in one centralized storage repository. You're putting that in one location. So instead of having to go through different files or different drawers or different parts of the building looking for various asset information, operation manuals, as-built plans, you can store it all in one location within your GIS or asset management platform, where you can click on it, see what that asset is, and visualize where that asset is. By utilizing the GIS platform, you can deploy all that information enterprise-wide, through ArcGIS Online or ArcGIS Portal, or out into the field, which I'll talk about in a moment. Everyone has access to these data sets in real time, so you're not going to be working off an old set of plans that might not match up with your coworkers or another group working on that area. When you begin these projects from scratch, you kind of have what I like to say three deliverables all in one. You have the point cloud, which is going to be used for its specific purposes. You have the Revit and the BIM model, which is going to be used for its specific purposes. And you have the GIS model, which is going to be used for asset management operation. So various departments are going to benefit from implementing this solution. I do just want to mention that you don't have to start from scratch. If you already have a point cloud or if you have a BIM model, you can jump right into the GIS integration and asset management integration. Just one thing to note is, you get out what you put in. Is that information you're putting in accurate? That's definitely a key component. And the final thing I would like to say is, don't be scared of 3D. A lot of this is traditional GIS functionality that you might be used to in-house. A lot of it is just learning how to click the buttons differently. Prior to these kind of workflows, really only engineers or designers utilize these kind of 3D technologies and 3D solutions. But with the simplicity of them now, and by bringing them into the GIS and asset management platform, you're really allowing a lot more people in your organization to benefit and utilize these models and these solutions. And then the next step, what else is going on? So as I mentioned, when we first went down this road, the challenges were integrating these models with GIS for asset management, as well as to send them out into the field, to put them in the hands of our field technicians and to improve operations. So, as Chris mentioned, we are going to have future webinars where we are going to focus on the field mobility solutions, which include augmented reality, indoor wayfinding through ArcGIS Indoors, as well as overall facility management for airports, transportation facilities, campuses, and more. So that's definitely something to keep an eye out there. And with that, I think we're at about 3 minutes left. Thank you all very much for listening. Here's Chris and I's contact information. I think we're going to open up to questions, unless Chris, you have any comments?
No, I think great presentation, Zach. I think we just want to point out that this is the first step of implementation of digital twins into the everyday operation and function of infrastructure facilities. As Zach pointed out in that last slide, we have taken this well beyond just the integration of asset management. We are now utilizing it with our clients with facility management, wayfinding, work orders, security, many different aspects that we're now integrating digital twins into. We'll be covering those on future webinars. So we hope that you've enjoyed our presentation. And I hope that you come back and visit our future webinars, which will be coming up shortly. And again, anybody has any questions,
Yes,
happy to answer them.
I see a couple questions here. The first one is, were these opportunities driven by specific business outcomes that the customers, DeKalb, Riverside, et cetera, wanted to see through a digital twin, or was it driven mainly from an innovation or R&D perspective? Also, is this used in day-to-day operations? So these ones were actually driven by a real business driver. So the example for DeKalb was that, as I mentioned, they constantly had to order parts and replacements for these indoor assets, and they had a very hard time identifying what those assets were, what parts they were, who to contact. So what we did for them was, we took an asset inventory when we created the model, and we incorporated all that information on who makes that part, what's the stock ID, and who do they need to call. We put that in the hands of their field technicians. So when their field technicians are on site, they can view those models, pan around, they say, oh, I'm at this valve. What is this valve? They can click on it, see the different parts, and directly contact or create a work order for that part replacement. Just real quick, we also deployed a survey 123 for them. So which previously they weren't keeping track of the assets they were really ordering. They were just kind of keeping up with the flow. And so they started being able to keep records of what parts they were ordering and who was ordering them, and so on. So there was a real business driver there.
I just add with that, Zach, that I think it's fair to say that the DeKalb as well as the Riverside projects were both initially approached as pilot programs to see how these integrations would work within their daily operations. Both of those pilots were deemed extremely successful, and both of those users are now beginning to integrate a full enterprise-wide implementation of the solutions that we provided.
Right. And another question here, if your client does not have an EAM, what do you do / recommend? Do you build a database inside ArcGIS? Do you suggest they use a separate EAM? It's kind of, not that it's personal preference, but these EAM platforms have very specific, not goals, but use cases, for work order management, budgeting, and so forth. You definitely can start, I would recommend starting by creating these 3D models. We're creating your asset inventories, giving them unique IDs, starting to populate the attribute information, saying, what make and model is this? When was it installed? Let me hyperlink to the outside data source information like operation manuals. That's going to be the foundation. You can utilize the GIS, the Geo database, as your asset management platform, strictly within GIS. And then when your organization is ready to take those next steps, you can introduce a third-party asset management platform like CityWorks, Maximo, Infor. So it kind of depends on case by case and what your ultimate end goals are. But I would say the foundation is creating the model, getting the initial attribute population in there to then continue down the road.
So it looks like we are at time today. Chris and Zach, thank you so much. Wow, a lot of information in a short time. I really appreciate all that you were able to cover, and thank you all for joining us today. We will send you a copy of the recorded webinar and hope that we'll see you on future sessions soon. Thanks so much.
Thanks, Amy. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.